Physical Security Countermeasures webinar. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules and joining us today. My name is Mark Bransness. I'm the Physical Security Course Manager and Instructor in the Training Division here at the Center for Development of Security Excellence, or CDSE. In this role, I'm responsible for the management, development, and delivery of all CDSE physical and information security courses. I have 27 years of experience in law enforcement and security program management and have been working for DSS and the CDSE for 5 years. I also manage and teach in the Applying Physical Security Concepts course and also teach in the Information Security Management and DoD Security Specialist courses. So here's our first chat question. List some of the physical security measures you encountered from the moment you left your house to the moment you sat down at your desk. So as you consider this, think about your responses in terms of personnel, such as security guards, police, etc. Information. Was there information you encountered at home or work that is an asset to you and you protected as such as bank ledgers and or classified information? Think of equipment. Security equipment you encountered, such as barriers, fencing, signs, access control systems, and intrusion detection systems as examples. Facilities. How about security measures at your house, train, or in a subway station, or at your place of work? With activities and operations, think about procedures or activities you saw or experienced, and also consider how you operated your car on your way to work. Please enter your response in the chat box. Okay, good. I see locked doors, card reader, security guards, seat belt in the car, that's a good one. Car key fob to open your car, that's great. Standoff in the parking lot. I'm liking the answers I'm seeing. Cipher locks, okay, very good. All right, so great responses. In our examples, we categorized our assets into functional areas. We'll talk specifically about those in a few slides. First, let's look at our webinar objectives for today. First, we'll identify categories of DoD assets. Next, we'll identify and list physical security measures. And lastly, we'll discuss the implementation and evaluation of physical security countermeasures. Throughout this discussion, you'll hear me mention implementation and selection of physical security measures and countermeasures based on requirements. This is simply when an asset must be protected in accordance with established policy by specific physical security measures, such as the requirement for sensitive compartmented information facilities to be protected by intrusion detection systems. Keep this in mind as we discuss physical security measures and applying them as countermeasures. There are measures implemented to satisfy requirements and those driven by sound cost-benefit analysis. Okay, so our first step in protecting our assets is to identify and prioritize them. So let's look at identifying them using specific categories. So the purpose of physical security is to protect our assets. In the Department of Defense, we categorize our assets using the acronym PI-FAO, which is people, information, equipment, facilities, activities, and operations. To protect these assets, we implement physical security measures and countermeasures to mitigate vulnerabilities to those assets. Vulnerabilities are those weaknesses which, left unchanged, could lead to the loss, theft, or destruction of that asset. Vulnerabilities present criminals, terrorists, and other threats to render our assets inoperable, thus impacting our mission. We use physical security measures to create depth in our security posture, which deters, detects, delays, and ultimately denies access to assets. So here's a question for you using the raised hand icon drop-down menu. Do you think the countermeasures your organization implements to protect your assets are effective? In other words, do they do what they are supposed to do? Like a card reader system preventing unauthorized access by denying persons attempting to bypass the system with bogus codes. Use the raised hand icon to answer with agree or disagree.
Again, go up to the little person with the hand raised. If you click the drop-down box, you can get a green check for agree and a red X for disagree. Looks like we're getting a lot of people agreeing with that statement,
agree.
Mark.
That's great. And you would hope they would say that. All right, so let's ask yourselves a few questions about your physical security measures. Physical security measures are designed to mitigate vulnerabilities and create security in depth. So ask yourself the following questions about your security countermeasures. Do they safeguard personnel? Do they prevent unauthorized access to equipment, installations, material, and documents? Do they safeguard assets against espionage, sabotage, damage, and theft? And do they control access and movement within a facility? So do the physical security measures employed at your organization deter, detect, delay, and deny access to your assets? So good communication so far, so let's keep that going with chat question number 2. So chat question number 2, identify physical security countermeasures that assist in protecting classified information. And you can also use the job aid that's in your file share box. Okay, good. I see GSA security containers. That's good. Controlled restricted area signs. That is a good answer. Restricting access, intrusion detection systems, all good answers. Okay, so that list is great. So you can also look at the job aid, like I mentioned, in your file share box for additional measures. Think again about our chat question and write down measures from the list which could specifically assist you in protecting classified information. Compare that list with one off the top of your head from the chat question. So let's look at our general list of measures on the next slide. To protect classified information, we would employ measures from this list and other possible measures. Remember to apply requirements-based measures first, then add additional measures to create security in depth. As you look at this list, think of your assets and how you can integrate several measures to mitigate vulnerabilities to the categories of assets we mentioned earlier. Remember this list and have the job aid from the file share box handy. We'll be using both later in the webinar. So to keep you thinking of countermeasures, here's a poll question. True or false? Purchasing a GSA-approved security container mitigates the potential for unauthorized disclosure of classified information, but is also a requirements-based countermeasure. Okay, great.
I got almost 100%. True.
We are at 100%. I'm glad to see that. So the correct response, folks, is true. It is a requirements-based countermeasure which mitigates the vulnerability of classified material to loss, theft, or unauthorized disclosure. Great job. So again, as a security professional, you must identify which countermeasures are requirements-based, like the GSA-approved security container, and apply those measures first. We can then apply a risk-based process along with cost-benefit analysis to justify the use of other measures to incorporate into your physical security planning. Let's define what a countermeasure is and look at the concept of applying these in depth. Integrated countermeasures are security measures employed to deter, delay, detect, and deny or prevent aggression or attacks on identified critical assets, establishing a multi-layered approach to protection of an asset. They are simply physical security measures used to counter specific threats to an asset. Some, again, are requirements-based, like the minimum fence height for an installation or arms, ammunition, and explosive storage area. And some measures, like barriers, are used to create standoff. And though the specific barrier may not be a requirement, the standoff distance created by the use of barriers meets a requirement. So let's look at this graphic on the next slide to depict an asset and where we might add layers of countermeasures. So speaking of security in depth, looking at the graphic, you can see physical security measures integrated and applied in depth to create the deter, detect, delay, deny concept. As you can see, there are multiple physical security measures employed in this case. We mentioned the concept of deter, detect, delay, and deny. So let's explain this concept. Security in depth follows a layered approach. Through deterrence, the prevention of potential incidents through fear of consequences, detect, alerts, assesses, and provides evidence of unauthorized intrusions, delay, active and passive measures to slow or encumber a potential threat. This includes the initial response. And finally, the combination of all security measures brought to bear to prevent and arrest enemy action. Deny. This is the final response. This is the 4Ds concept. Let's get more specific about what integration of measures looks like. As we discussed, security in depth is a multi-layered approach employing physical security measures to create a layered, integrated defense against potential threats. At the innermost layer is the asset to be protected. The outer layers consist of the facility layout and construction, visitor entry areas, intrusion detection systems, closed-circuit television systems, perimeter entry and checkpoints, fencing, signage, site lighting, and barriers. One of the places you'll see a full definition for security in depth is in the Unified Facilities Criteria 4-010-05, which is in your file share box. So think about that asset graphic we looked at a few slides back, and then your job aid. You should be thinking of implementing the integrated approach to protect your assets in your job every day. So what we have discussed so far should give us some nice solid direction in achieving an integrated approach to applying physical security measures. So next is a chat question regarding security in depth. So answer this question. How would you use an access control system like biometrics to create security in depth? Please enter your response in the chat box. Okay, you see the access point. Okay, that creates a layer. Access to the building. Entry into a SCIF. Okay, restricted access at a door. Those are all good. Those all create layers. Control outside the area and then control at the area door. That's very good. Okay, so it looks like we got the point there. So great. Let's look at specific categories of measures and how we can use them. Let's start with security forces. One of the most critical components of the physical security system is the dedicated security force. They provide the enforcement element of the physical security program for installations and facilities. This force consists of personnel specifically organized, trained, and equipped to protect the command's physical security interests. It is a commander's most effective tool in a comprehensive and integrated physical security program. Security forces' efforts are typically focused on law enforcement, crime prevention, physical security of critical assets, protection of high-risk personnel, and access control. Another measure we can use to counter threats is our access control systems. Those systems ensure that only authorized personnel gain access to controlled areas. These systems are normally integrated with other electronic security systems, such as intrusion detection and closed-circuit television systems, and consist of locks, card readers, biometric readers, alarms, and computer systems to monitor and control access. An individual's credential is compared against the database. If the information is verified, the system sends output signals allowing the authorized personnel to pass through controlled portals, such as gates and doors. So security forces and access control systems are important physical security measures, but do they operate better solo or in concert with each other? Let's answer that in the form of a poll question. True or false? Security forces and access control systems are most effective when they work in concert with each other.
Looks like everybody was listening.
Yep, right away too. Okay, good. That might have been a softball, but that's good to see. Okay, so obviously the correct response here, like you all had, is true. One supports the other in counting threats to our assets and also creates the depth we're looking at in our security posture. So closed-circuit television, or CCTV, assists security forces in monitoring assets, assessing incidents, and directing response forces. It can also be used as evidence in legal proceedings. The CCTV system is the integration of cameras, recorders, switches, keyboards, and monitors that allow viewing and recording of security events. They may be utilized for alarm assessment and surveillance. For surveillance, a properly designed CCTV system provides a cost-effective supplement to security operations. It is important to recognize that CCTV alarm assessment systems and CCTV systems perform separate and distinct functions. The alarm assessment system is designed to respond rapidly, automatically, and predictably to the receipt of alarms at the monitoring station, while surveillance systems are designed for use at the discretion and under the control of the console operator at the monitoring station. So time for a poll question regarding CCTV. So this is a multiple choice question. Which of the following is a function of the CCTV system in security operations? Is it A, surveillance, B, prevent access, C, assessment, or D, both A and C?
Looks like the majority of the people are picking D, both A and C.
That's what it looks like. Okay, and that's good because D is your correct response. That is both A and C. They're used in both surveillance and assessment. So let's look at a different kind of physical security measure. Let's look at barriers. Physical barriers are an integral part of the perimeter security system and serve to facilitate the control of pedestrian and vehicle access. Physical barriers define the perimeter and establish a physical and psychological deterrent to adversaries attempting unlawful or unauthorized entry. Physical barriers delay and disrupt an attack and channel the flow of personnel and vehicles through designated areas. Two types of physical barriers should be considered. Those are natural and man-made, as depicted by the fence and the man-made berm the soldiers are sitting on above in the picture. Okay, so time for another poll question to check your knowledge of physical barriers. Multiple choice. Which of the following are considered active physical security measures? Is that A, manually operated gates, B, hydraulic pop-up vehicle barriers, C, electronically operated gates or turnstiles, or D, all of the above?
Looks like most people are thinking it's all of the above.
And I would have to agree with them, Sandy. The correct response is D. All of the above are active barrier systems. Okay, so great job. So moving on, it's time to talk about signage and how important it is to our overall security posture. Signs should be positioned to assist in establishing legal boundaries, controlling and deterring unauthorized entry, and precluding accidental entry. Signs should be clearly displayed and legible from any approach to the perimeter from a reasonable distance and in bilingual text in those geographic areas where multiple languages are spoken. Warning signs augment control signs and warn intruders that the area is restricted and that trespassing may result in the use of deadly force. So again, we've got a poll question to follow up. So poll question number 5, true or false? It is a requirement to post bilingual signs in geographic areas where multiple languages are spoken.
The majority of the people think it's true, but we have quite a few falses too.
We'll see. Let's see what everybody answers here. Okay, it looks like we've got most people in. Okay, so the answer is true. It is required by DoD 5200.8-R, Security of DoD Installations and Resources, and the DoD Physical Security Review Board. Again, understanding how requirements play into determining physical security measures is important. So bilingual signs are required. So next, security lighting is a key measure to include in our overall security plan. So let's talk about this physical security measure. Security lighting is a psychological deterrent and should be installed along perimeter fences to aid with observation. Security lighting should discourage or deter intruders from attempting illegal entry. Lighting design should include glare considerations. Glare should not impede observation from either security forces or CCTV systems overwatching areas of concern. Proper illumination should lead a potential intruder to believe detection is inevitable. Lighting should never be used alone, but rather in conjunction with other security measures, such as fixed security posts, patrols, fences, and electronic security systems. It supports the detection of threats to our assets by illuminating areas of critical importance and aiding in the assessment of activity. Okay, so knowledge check time. When considering security in depth, in which of the following phases do you think security lighting plays the most important role? So remember our 4 Ds. Is it A, deter, B, detect, C, delay, or D, deny?
Looks like most people are thinking it's the deter stage.
Okay, think about it.
It looks like we're getting some changes in answers.
Okay, although security lighting does aid in the deterrence, it is planned in the detection phase of our 4 Ds. So the correct response is B. It supports the detection of threats to our assets by illuminating areas of critical importance and aiding in the assessment of activity. So good, we ended up with 66% there. Okay, so let's wrap this section up with an exercise. And so recall the asset graphic from earlier in the webinar. So that leads us to chat question number 4. Okay, so back to our graphic. Looking at this graphic, identify the physical security measures you see and name one you would add to and what you see, add to what you see, excuse me. Use the job aid to assist you. So again, since I stumbled through that, identify the physical security measures you see and name one you would add to what you see. And of course, you can use that job aid that we gave you. We'll give you a few minutes to do that. So also write these down on a piece of paper if you got it, so when we get to the solution side, you can compare answers. So fence, okay, good. We got NWDs. I see CCTV as an additive a lot, which is good. Okay, good. Cameras a lot. I like that. Okay, believe it or not, there is signage on the fence. I know it's hard to see. That is one of the measures that's in place, so that's good. It gives us a legal boundary. All right, good, Sandy. Looks like they got that. So let's see on our solution here what we had. Okay, so we just listed some basics here. From looking at your responses in the chats, I can see we have the basics and some even more detailed countermeasures to protect our assets. So if we go through what we have there, we have some obstacles in place. We have warning signs, which gives us that legal demarcation or that boundary, establishes that boundary. We've also got barriers and fencing. We have some rocks there. We have a fence. We have guards. Actually, there is a guard both inside the entrance and at the gate right there. So we have some drop-down arms that adds some depth. And we have security lighting, and we have a military working dog on patrol there. So good. And obviously, I saw CCTV as an additive a lot there. And also, we'd want to think about beefing up that access control point. Looks like we might have a portal for them to enter through and where the guard does some security checks there. So good. We're thinking, and that's great. So one last note before we finish up. Evaluating the effectiveness of your countermeasures. Let's take a look at that. Okay, an effective security program is an integrated and coherent effort from all involved parties. In evaluating the effectiveness of your mitigation efforts, you simply just need to look at the overall security posture before and after your countermeasure implementation. Utilizing the risk management process to track efficiencies is one concept. The other is to look at what the problem was prior to the implemented solution and whether or not your countermeasure has corrected that vulnerability. Use physical security measures in compliance with policy-based requirements and countermeasures in response to deviations in security requirements and to mitigate vulnerabilities to your assets. Remember to address those vulnerabilities with requirements first, then use market and cost-benefit analysis to apply additional physical security countermeasures to address an issue. Sometimes to eliminate a problem, it may be as simple as instituting an aggressive security education and training program. So in summary, During this webinar, we've identified categories of DoD assets. We've identified and listed physical security measures and discussed the implementation and evaluation of physical security countermeasures. We also talked about requirements-based decisions when it comes to selecting physical security countermeasures. To learn more about CDSE e-learning and instructor-led courses, please visit the CDSE.edu website. Our instructor-led in-resident course is called the Applying Physical Security Concepts course. The Applying Physical Security Concepts course is an in-residence instructor-led course which introduces learners to the process of applying the risk management process to manage a fictional installation's physical security program. Learners are guided through the concepts of applying physical security measures to create security in depth to protect DoD assets. CDSE will release its FY15 schedule soon, so keep checking for the catalog on the CDSE.edu website. Sandy, it looks like we've got about a minute here.
I think you have time for at least one question, so
Absolutely.
How about this one? In a time of defense spending cuts, please address how to do more with less.
Okay, folks, there's no easy answer to this, so this is going to get a bit wordy, but stick with me here. So really, in this particular case, the surest method is to identify what assets are most critical to your mission and what are the minimum requirements to protect them. Obviously, you're going to refer to policy to determine what those minimum requirements are. One concept is use a risk management process to determine your assets and assess the risk to those assets. Then you're going to assess the threat to those assets and then calculate the risk and then apply countermeasures to those assets where vulnerabilities have been identified. That's the surest way to document and prioritize your mission-critical assets. So really, basically, if you use the 5-step risk management process, that's one way to do that. When the risk management process is properly completed, really, you'll have an exact scope of what requirements must be purchased and what can wait for additional dollars. You can then plan your budget against cost to purchase security equipment and do more focused cost-benefit analysis, and that'll help you. Without a documented process like using a risk management concept, the 5-step process, you may spend your budget on items that don't solve your security issues. So address those vulnerabilities first, then move down the priority list and see what else you have dollars for.
I think we're out of time.
We are. Okay, so finally, folks, if you need to get a hold of us, this is our contact information. Our handouts and frequently asked questions from this webinar will be posted on the CDSE webinar website. You may also email the physical security training related questions to the DSS at physicalsecurity.training@dss.mil. So thank you for attending the CDSE Implementing Effective Physical Security Countermeasures webinar, and please complete the survey you will see popping up shortly. Thank you.